Hey there, welcome to Crafts on the Move. I'm Andrea, and today we are stepping into our Maker Studio for another tutorial. Let's get started. Thanks for joining me in the Maker Studio again. This is Andrea with Crafts on the Move, and I'm excited to be here to share a couple of pro tips about prepping your paper and dies before you start die cutting. So two big tips that I am going to cover are how to set up your inlay dies. And the inlay dies are essentially two components. They are a shadow die and then an inlay die. And from time to time, you'll see die sets that do this. I'm going to give you a tip on how to mark this die up so that you can easily figure out the placement of the two dies together so they are cutting the paper the way that is intended. And then the other tip I'm going to go over is using a repositionable tape for your die cutting. The supplies that I'm going to be using for the demo are my die cutting machine. I will be using the Platinum Scout from Spellbinders, the Best Ever craft tape from Spellbinders. We also use the Go Letterpress removable craft tape from Couture Creations. This is a great tape as well. So we interchange between the two of them. We're going to be using a permanent marker. You can also use a paint pen, and I will also be using 3 different sheets of cardstock so I can show you the 3 different ways that the dies will cut your shape. And so the first thing we're going to get started with is marking these dies. So from time to time, you'll get these shadow dies, and every time you're using it, it's a struggle to figure out which way the dies line up when you have your inlay inside your shadow. So the thing I do, which I have found to be very helpful, is I mark them, and I mark them on the back side. So it is the flat side of the die. If you turn it over, you will see there's an edge. That is the cutting line, and that's what actually compresses down into the paper to cut your paper when it's through processed through the machine. And what I do is I'm going to set this aside. I take my shadow die and I take the inlay die and I figure out where they go, how it lines up. And this is why I like marking it, because sometimes it can be a little challenging. I believe that is how the die is intended to lay. And so what I do is I take my permanent marker and I pick one edge of both the inlay and the outline die or the shadow die, and I draw a line with my permanent marker. So I'm just going to draw a line or just add some color. And now I have a visual every time of where the die needs to be placed, the alignment for them, so I'm not guessing every time. The Sharpie or permanent marker will wear off over time, but you can remark it. And if you realize you marked it in the wrong spot, you can take some rubbing alcohol, wipe the color off, realign the dies, and then add your Sharpie when it's correct. So I'm going to show you the 3 different dies that you get when you use the dies. So the first die I'm going to run through is the detailed. This is the inlay. I'm going to do that on yellow cardstock. This is the beeswax. And I have the blade is down, facing down on the paper. And that's going to compress down and press down on that yellow paper and die cut. And so what happens when you have the detail is it just cuts where those cutting lines are. So this is not going to help me with getting my floral shape. The next shape we're going to cut is the shadow. And when you are making these, you typically want the shadow. So I'm going to do the shadow in the lilac. And of course the cut plate is down, so it's the cut plate down, the cardstock, and then your sandwich assembled. I'm going to just make a pass through the machine. And this will make the shadow or the base of the shape. And there we have the base of the flower. Next, we are going to do the detail. And because you want the detail, the shape of your flower, you need both the dies. This is where the inlay die and the shadow come in handy, and where that line. You see how quick that was for me to line that up? So easy because of that mark. Now, the one thing I do pay attention to is the spacing around the inlay and the shadow. That's a personal preference. And then I do grab a small piece of my repositionable tape. I line the die up. And once I have it lined and I have what I consider the inlay centered on the shadow, I add my tape. You can also do two things. Right now, this is set up that it's touching a little bit of the paper. Let me take this out. So right now, it's holding the two dies in place and it's holding the paper down to my cutting board, the cutting plate. But if you're going to reuse this configuration, say you cut all your shadows or your bases first, and now you're going to cut the detail piece, I recommend just taping these together, just like that. And then you can actually reuse this setup multiple times until the tape wears down. So you won't have to retape every time. So that'll save you a little bit of time. I'm going to run this through. I'm going to make a pass with the machine. I didn't have my plates quite lined up there. Had to give it a little extra help. And there is my overlay for the flower. And now you just need to line up these pieces. Oops. I would glue that down, and there is your finished detailed die cut. So I will glue that for you so you can see it completed. And now you have your really pretty detailed flower. The flowers are usually the hardest to line up because a lot of the petals look very similar. And it's not all floral die sets are like that. Some are, some aren't. It depends on what look they were trying to go for when they were designing the die set. And that is what we have for the 2 pro tips. So again, you want to go ahead and mark up your die. The permanent marker will wear off after time, and you can just add another little line of color on the dies once you get it lined up. So just repeat the steps again if that happens. It takes a few passes through for that marker to wear off, but it will help you save a lot of time. And that's all we have. Thank you so much for joining us in the Maker Studio. I hope you found this helpful, and happy card making.